As we step into a movie theater, we find ourselves suspended in a peculiar paradox. For the next 2 hours, we surrender to the enchantment of a two-dimensional screen, but within this seemingly straightforward act, our eyes work their magic. They piece together film grains, shapes, objects, and scenes, mirroring the complexity of life itself. The essence of cinema lies not merely in the illusionary dance of light and shadow, but in its profound ability to supplement our knowledge of the realities we encounter. The whole cinematic experience is a mix of reality and imagination. Within this tension, we navigate to the delicate balance of perceiving the cinematic world as both real and unreal. Our eyes remain fixed on the screen, while our minds gracefully flow into the captivating world of a very important concept of film theory: representation. Cinema is an autonomous artistic medium with a unique language and representational system. Instead of trying to faithfully reflect reality as a reflection, it creates its own reality through the use of elements and its own grammar. Analyzing the peculiarities of the cinematic process to fully appreciate the complexity and uniqueness of this art, we should analyze the peculiarities of the cinematic process, paying attention to how it creates meaning through its representations and not to evaluate a film based on its fidelity to reality. The first elements of cinematographic representation are perceptive, and the structure of cinematic perception is easily translatable into that of natural perception, so much that we can rely on information we construct in viewing films to supplement our common perceptual knowledge. Cinematic information supplements what we know about one or another of the worlds we inhabit. Cinema fascinates because we alternately see it as real and unreal. It participates in the familiar world of our ordinary experience and then slips into its own very different screen world. Therefore, in the cinematic experience, the vision exists because of an interaction between the real and the image. And the transition between these two extremes means moving, as in a daytime dream, towards another reality. The relationship between reality and representation can change. In documentaries, for example, we have a variable relationship between these elements in their extremes. In most cases, we know and believe something about this world, and he uses our knowledge of it. Barbara Schroeder's portrait of Idi Amin forces us to process the image of Idi, the ex-dictator of Uganda, within a field of knowledge. The fiction is based on a substrate of the viewer's understanding of the kind of world that becomes the subject of the film, but it quickly transfers our interest to the world of the image, appealing to our knowledge of its reference. The intersection between fiction and reality creates a unique cinematic experience, as we can see in Robert Altman's Nashville.
If you won't take the things you make me wanna give.
But there are different ways they go about depicting real life on screen. Biopics, for example, functions as a synecdoche, with the smallest everyday piece of someone's life story standing in as a representation for every other part of it.
Cinema is a complex form of art, having the capacity to reproduce the reality that we can see through the lens of its camera. It should also share an intrinsic bond with the realism of its images. As the French theoretical André Bazin said, a movie is a media that represents the world in all its possibility and variation. Going against the use of the montage, his idea was one of a cinema as pure as possible, discovering its potentiality throughout the material links that it shares with the real world. Despite that, cinema is not only a matter of that link. The ninth art is also about constructing. An image is never the same to another, even if the subject is the same. It will change on the basis of how it is constructed and captured. Every image is able to produce new meaning, as the relation with the other frames of the film changes its definitive message. For those reasons, we could say that the representation in cinema can't be excluded, as if it was a characteristic that fitted more with other arts. Movies are built from representation because it's the only way they are able to create words coherent with the ideas that they intend to communicate. We could say cinema is about how reality is perceived through its images. We are forgetting, though, that the spectator are an important part of this process. A person watching a film will never work as a white paper to be filled in. Spectators are the last part of the process of creation in a movie, closing the gaps between an image and what it is trying to say. Usually, many authors construct in their film a series of symbols that even go against the representation that they are creating. To make an example, irony is an element capable of creating doubts in the spectator. Resulting not clear, it leaves to the spectator the necessity to decide what a word or a frame are trying to communicate with us. Let's think about the idea that the word representation of movies is a main unit that our mind puts together. This idea takes us into the magic of movies, where each picture mixes with others, creating a story that our mind arranges like a tricky puzzle. The flow of movies become a psychological imitation of the real flow of reality. This imitation isn't just a series of linked scenes, it's a sensory journey that takes us beyond the screen and makes us understand and interpret, grabbing our attention. When we watch The Killing by Kubrick, the rules of 180 and 30 degrees becomes essential, shaping how character and scenes interact. It's like an invisible dance, a language that through the flow makes things feel connected, even when there are breaks. In Der Suzzala, Akira Kurosawa, from a cinematographic perspective, the film stands out for its narrative continuity, emotional flow, and visual language. The film is not just a sequence of events, but an harmonious flow of moments that unfold naturally. The director skillfully uses silence, allowing room for images and music to convey deep emotions. This creates a cinematic language that goes beyond words, capturing the sense of human relationship and connection with nature. In this way, the film becomes an experience that goes beyond simple words, engaging viewers in a unique visual and emotional narrative. These movies, like every movies, are a mix of codes, general languages mixed with specific film codes that bring different meanings to life, where each link and glance enrich the visual dialogue. In Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, the interruption of cinematic flow emerges as a distinctive feature. Godard, a novel-vague director, is known for his experimentation and unconventional approach to storytelling. Over the course of the film, Godard deliberately interrupts the traditional flow of the story, defying viewers' expectation and creating a break in narrative continuity. This distinctive style is aimed at stimulating the viewer's mind and making him reflect on the very nature of cinematic narrative. But speaking of realism, Roberto Rossellini's film Paisa represents a classical example of neorealist cinema. Neorealism aimed to capture reality without artifice, and with a strong emphasis on the daily life and experience of ordinary people. In the case of Paisa, Rossellini uses non-professional actors and authentic settings to create a realistic picture of life during the World War II. The film focuses on human connection and sincere portrayal of the effect of the conflict on the Italian population. Turning to modernism, Roman Polanski's Rosemary's Baby is an example of how modernist cinema defies narrative conventions. In cinematic modernism, plot and process can differ significantly from traditional narrative structures. Rosemary's Baby breaks with expectation through a plot that mixes horror and psychological elements in unexpected ways. Polanski's film challenges the audience to reflect on the nature of psychological horror and social convention, breaking the tradition of the genre.